This week's episode of Timeless Lessons is dedicated to my late grandfather, Abe Russ. May his memory be blessed. This week's Torah portion really starts off being the climax of what is the Clash of Titans, but it ends up being one of the most anticlimactic moments in, I would say, so far the entire Torah. Let me give you a little background. Isaac has two sons, as we spoke about, Esav and Jacob. He was intending to bless Esav with all the blessings, and Rebekah and Jacob joined together to scheme and take it away from Esav, which we spoke about in the past as to why that was legitimate. But either way, when Esav finds out, he goes nuts and basically vows to kill his brother Jacob when he sees him next. So Jacob runs away for his life, ends up in the house of Lavan, and then gets married, starts a family, and is now on the way back. So the way this portion opens up is Jacob's coming back, Esav finds out, and there's going to be a rumble in the jungle or the desert. So Jacob prepares for this, and he sends him gifts, and he prays, and he prepares for war, and the portion opens up, and Esav comes closer, and you almost can, if you read the story slow enough, you almost can feel the music in the background as Jacob lines up his family, splits his camp, sends gifts, and literally prepares for death, prepares for every potential possibility. None of them really looking too good. And Esav pulls up with his horse and dismounts and walks up to his brother and kisses him, basically forgiving him. And the entire story sort of like fizzles, and it's over. And Jacob continues on his way, Esav continues on his way, and the brothers never see each other again. And the words that are being used, kisses, the commentators talk about, and they explain that when Esav was on his way to see Jacob, he actually was coming to kill him. He was coming for war. But when he saw him, he was overwhelmed with some emotion and then saw him and kissed him. And I remember reading this for the first time, and it dawned on me that this scene is one of the most important lessons in life, in relationships, in business, which is the absolute need for human interaction. Right? At the basic level of this scene, you have an individual who is coming to kill another. And when he sees him, the fact that they're in the same presence, he brings up all of his emotions and can't bring himself to. This happens all the time in our lives, where you hear about what someone did to you, and then you talk behind their back, and you may send them an email that's nasty. You may do things or continue to speak about them behind their backs. But if you would ever confront them, you would find that you would never be that vicious. Online hate is because people can stay online. They can stay behind screens. They could hide behind fake names. Anytime you're in a situation where you are going to confront somebody else, anytime, whether that's in your family, whether that's with your friends, whether that's in your business, anytime you're in any position where you have to deliver bad news or be confrontational or give somebody criticism, any level of tension that takes place in your life, the cowardice way of doing it is to hide behind a screen or a telephone. It's easier for us. But usually when we do that, we're more callous. We're more aggressive. We're more insulting. And so as a result, we create more tension. We create more division. We get less accomplished. And if what I've found from anybody that I've seen to be successful in their relationships is that whenever there is bad news or tension or any level of confrontation, it only takes place in person. Because when you're in front of somebody, it's a totally different experience. Science speaks about this from the perspective of mirror neurons. When you sit in front of somebody, there are neurons that go off in your brain that mirrors how that person acts and what that person does in order to draw you closer together. And those neurons are gone when you're behind the screen, when you're texting or you're emailing or where you're behind the phone. We are designed to have better relationships. And here's a moment where two brothers were about to engage in war. And had they sent representatives, the war would have broke out. But when one brother got off his horse and saw the other brother, just the sight, just the human interaction enabled him to not be as aggressive, to not be as destructive as he intended, because that's how human beings work. We're not as bad as we may make out to be behind screens. We're not as confrontational than when we sit around with people like us and talk about them or her or him. And any time we have a moment of confrontation, if it's not going to be done in person, we're going to lose out. And so whatever's going on in your life, whatever news you have to deliver, whatever tensions exist in your business, make sure to never have those conversations behind screens. Have them in person. Create relationships or dissolve relationships in person. Because when you're in person, the real you comes out. When you're in person, the mercy and the relationship and the emotion and the empathy and the sympathy comes out. And what you get is that you continue the relationship even if you have to have a tough conversation. And that's what I think builds the future. And that's what I learned as a timeless lesson in this week's portion.